Welcome to Canton Confidential. 1 week from today, Karen Reed will walk back into a courtroom to take part in her second murder trial. Good evening, everyone. I'm J.C. Monahan.
And I'm Glenn Jones. Today was the final pre-trial hearing before jury selection gets underway. Our John Maroney was in the courtroom the entire time today. He breaks down the latest developments from Dedham.
Very anxious, and just want to get started.
Karen Reed's next appearance in Norfolk Superior Court will be for the start of her retrial. She's accused of hitting and killing her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, with her SUV in a blizzard.
Anything else?
Nothing to say.
All right, we'll see you on Tuesday.
Court, all right, please.
More than 200 potential jurors have been summoned next Tuesday for the start of the trial. One issue still unresolved, the use of a third-party culprit defense.
There is ample evidence tending to show that somebody else caused John O'Keefe's death.
The defense wants to tell the jury that John O'Keefe was killed by someone else, pointing the finger of blame at Colin Albert, Brian Higgins, and Brian Albert, who owned the home where O'Keefe's body was found. Prosecutors say the defense arguments are feeble and without evidence.
It can't be based on fiction. It has to be based on an identifiable theory.
Last I ever talked to him when he got out of my car at Brian Albert's house.
A new documentary about Reed has the attention of prosecutors. They're asking for permission to use portions of it during the trial.
This 5-part docuseries produces a number of statements from the defendant, many of them extraordinarily relevant.
Prosecutors failed to get phone records between Reed and defense attorney David Yannetti, arguing she waived attorney-client privilege by giving media interviews. The judge shut them down.
I'm not going to give you this information, Mr. Brennan.
Not a big surprise, but Judge Cannoni late this afternoon rejected a defense request to dismiss the case entirely. In Dedham, John Maroney, NBC 10 Boston.
Let's bring in NBC 10 legal expert and dean at Massachusetts School of Law, Michael Coyne. Michael, another day, a lot of motions, but Judge Cannoni really only ruled on a few things in court, specifically a loss for the prosecution. They wanted access to a very narrow but communication between Yannetti, who is Karen Reed's lawyer, and Karen Reed. That's usually attorney-client privilege. Prosecution was saying, oh, but she erased that as soon as she started talking publicly about this one narrow lane they wanted to talk about, and Judge Cannoni said no. Just your thoughts on whether they should have and how hard that is to try to break that confidence.
It was a bit of a reach. I'm not surprised she denied it. She really should have. We protect the attorney-client privilege in Massachusetts to the greatest extent possible. We want clients to be able to communicate with their lawyers, effectively tell them the information, knowing that that information is taken beyond the grave. The attorney will not release that even beyond the client's grave. In Massachusetts, we have a clear decision in that regard.
All right, let's start where this day started, the third-party culprit defense. The Commonwealth does not want this to be allowed. Brennan says it is unrelated to the case and character assassination. The defense believes the evidence shows consciousness of guilt, and they point to Brian Albert, Colin Albert, and Brian Higgins. Has the defense made the case, made the argument to allow a third-party culprit defense?
They've made the argument. The question is, will they be able to establish an admissible foundation for the defense? And that's what they're really arguing about. Brennan is saying a lot of this is based on conjecture. It's based on character assassination. Where's the beef? What evidence specifically do you have to support, A, that he was in the house, and B, that they had a motive and the means to kill him?
Is it a high bar?
It's not a high bar. Massachusetts encourages the use of the defense, but there has to be some factual basis through admissible evidence. And I think that's what the court's likely to do here, is to say they can present it as long as they provide the proper foundation first. And so they may not, again, be able to use it in their opening statement.
I'm going to put a really quick pressure on you because we don't have a lot of time, but what is the difference of naming them as third-party culprits? Because didn't we all get the understanding they were saying it without saying it in the first trial?
Yeah, I do think it was a lot more subtle this time, but what Brennan is forcing them to do is you can't just do it subtly. You've got to provide the evidence, the support for it, because otherwise it's just leading the jury astray.
Okay.
Okay, Michael, thank you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with you in a moment. As mentioned in John Maroney's report, Karen Reed's comments in that docuseries, which debuted last week, is having a potential impact on the second trial. I spoke with the executive producer of A Body in the Snow, The Trial of Karen Reed. She offered her thoughts on Karen Reed's guilt or innocence and efforts to fight bias from seeping into the project.
And the challenge was having so much footage to go through and really trying to make a balanced presentation, not come into it with any bias. We knew that it would be airing before the second trial, and that was really important that we try and do the best we could to present both sides of the case as balanced in as balanced a way as we could.
In your work, John O'Keefe certainly was not forgotten. You spent a lot of time talking about who he was. I assume that was an intentional choice. And now that you've put it all together, what's your sense of the kind of person he was?
Yeah, we made a very concerted effort to try and keep John as a presence in this documentary, because I really do feel that he's gotten lost in all of the noise around the case. And so that was very intentional. In fact, I wish we could have included even more. By all accounts, he was a good cop. He was a great dad to his kids, or his sister's kids, and just an all-around good guy. It's such a tragedy that he's no longer with us. I actually said to someone the other day, I wish I could have met him. I feel like I know him now, but I wish I could have met him. I think it would have been a pleasure.
Tara, you've spent an enormous amount of time with Karen Reed. Did you form your own opinion on her guilt or innocence?
No, we tried to go in and be as objective as we could. That was our job. There was so much I didn't know about the case when we started, because we started so quickly. So we were getting caught up. And as the defense was putting together their strategy, we were starting to understand more about what the prosecution strategy was, because you can't have a defense without the prosecution. That's why we had to present both sides. But no, we've really tried through this process to just keep an open mind. It's the jury's decision.
All episodes of A Body in the Snow, The Trial of Karen Reed, are available now to stream on Max. Investigation Discovery says the series has more than 6 million views in the past week. Michael, clearly a lot of people are really interested in this story. The executive producer also told me that Jackson and Reed came to her through an intermediary to get this project started. So I wanted to ask you, does Karen Reed have the right to sell her story, so to speak, in any way that she chooses?
In Massachusetts, she does. We don't have a son of Sam law, and that's what it usually has in some states, where someone who is accused of a crime and ultimately convicted cannot profit from their crimes. Now, she hasn't been convicted yet, but Massachusetts doesn't have such a provision anyway because of the concern about the constitutionality of it and the restriction on someone's right to free speech. We have ability to, through probation and the like, to order restitution and things along those lines, but she does have the right under the First Amendment to be able to sell her story here, and whether she's been paid or not, or will be paid subsequently, she does have that ability in Massachusetts.
Interesting. I didn't know that we were set apart that way.
Yep.
All right, Michael Coyne, as always, thank you. Good to see you. And
great to see you guys.
Prepare yourself for next week. Karen Reed's murder retrial set to start exactly 1 week from today. We will have live coverage of all the court proceedings on our sister station, NECN, as well as streaming on all of our NBC 10 Boston news channels.